Surprised I love playing sports? Don't judge my skills before you've seen them. Dear everybody, it's time to talk about ableism and play.
There are more than 6 million Canadians who have a disability, including Christopher, who you just heard from. And today is about celebrating and uplifting them. But it's also about working to remove barriers and the stigma that hampers their access to opportunities. Today is the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and advocates say we all have a role to play in building a more inclusive Canada for everyone. How do we do it? Well, let's ask our panel. Joining us on CP24 tonight is Christine Hill from the Holland Bloorview Foundation and Ahsan Musavi, who's using his voice and his experience to force others to confront their biases about disability. Thanks to both of you for making time for CP24 tonight. Ahsan, I want to start with you because looking at you, you could never tell from my vantage point that you are someone who is living with a disability. So tell us about your challenges, how you overcome them, and how you're inspiring the next generation to break down all of the bias and the stigma altogether.
Hello, thank you so much for having me here. First of all, I'm going to start off with Happy International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Yeah, from looking at a camera, you won't be able to tell that I have a disability, but when you meet me in person or see me walk in, you can definitely notice. I have a disability called septic arthritis. That's an infection that affects your joints, and in my case, it's my left shoulder and my left knee. And due to that, I limp when I walk, and I wear support in my left feet, which is about 5 inches long, which helps me walk, balance, and do the things I love to do. Talking about some of the barriers that I've faced in my life, there are quite a few barriers that I've faced, and I'll break them down into 3 segments: systematic, physical, and social barriers. Systematic barriers are barriers that exclude people from disabilities from participating in work, sports, or soccer. That's like not having programs for people with disabilities, or having policies that support accommodation for people with disabilities. Physical barriers are barriers like accessible buildings, accessible transit to accessible buildings. And those are some of the physical barriers, but I'll focus more on social barriers. That are the beliefs that people with disabilities do not live fulfilling lives, or they cannot participate in our economy and in our society, whether that's working, teaching, or playing sports. And that's something that I've faced in my life quite a bit. I grew up. I was born in Pakistan. I immigrated to Canada when I was 17, and some of the social barriers that I faced was, people when they would look at me playing soccer, they would be like, how can you play soccer? Or, because I limp when I walk, they would laugh at me or call me names like limp. And that is something that I faced quite a lot. Or some would also even go as far as imitating the way I walk. So those are some of the barriers I've faced in my life, and social barriers.
And how have you overcome those barriers, Ahsan? Some of the things you've just told us about. How did you find the strength or the supports to get through it and to be here today talking to people who might very well be listening and being in your shoes as well?
Yeah, I think the first part is accepting yourself, is believing that you can do whatever you set your mind to. And it's not something easy. It took me a really long time until I reached third year of university to put the word disabled and my identity in the same sentence. Is to genuinely and deeply embrace yourself and love yourself about who you are, your disability, and use that as fuel to achieve what you want. And that's how you can overcome challenges. And you're going to face barriers, but you need to be strong within yourself to believe that you can go forward with your life and with your goals.
I love that. That's so powerful, using disabled as part of your identity, because it does not mean you are not able to do things. Christine, Holland Bloorview of the Holland Bloorview Foundation do amazing work with thousands of kids, just like Ahsan, each and every year. This year, the campaign actually focuses on tackling the issue of ableism. Tell me about it and how important it is to even have a day like today where we can have this kind of conversation.
Yes, our purpose at Holland Bloorview is to create the most meaningful and healthy futures for kids and youth and their families. And Dear Everybody's a movement that we started in 2017, where we wanted to raise awareness about the stigma faced by kids with disabilities. We can't think of a child's health without considering all of the things that might affect their future. This year, we're taking a bold step by addressing conversations around the topic of ableism. And by definition, it's discrimination towards someone based on their abilities. And it often results in favoring those who don't have disabilities. We actually ran a survey in the summer through the polling firm Leger, and discovered that although 95% of Canadians could define words like sexism or racism, only 30% knew what ableism was. So we knew we had a lot of work to do. So for this year's campaign, our kids and youth are inviting people to have conversations about ableism and share their lived experience and learn about the harmful effects of ableism. They talk about their experiences and the barriers that they face. And sometimes that's in school, sometimes it's not seeing themselves in the media. We know that 22% of Canadians have disability, and that's not what we see on our TV screens and in film. So some of our kids talk about facing impolite stares or name-calling, exclusionary activities, or inaccessible public spaces. And we want those barriers to cease to exist for our kids, so that they truly can have the most hopeful futures.
Ahsan, how important is it to have that visibility? We keep saying if you can see it, you can be it. So if you see people in TV or movies or music videos, for example, who isn't that token person with a disability, how much does that mean to someone's, self-confidence or self-worth if they are someone who identifies as disabled?
Yeah, it's really important that we see someone with a disability in the media, because that's exactly, we're going back to the point, right? If you can't see them, you can't be them. And it also challenges the stigma against disability. It is a part of our society. It is part of our society, it's part of humanity, and a big population of Canadians live with a disability. So when we don't see them in the media, we're excluding them, because media has a lot of influence. From social media all the way to advertisements. So having a person with a disability, both visible and non-visible, goes a long way, because it gives kids with disabilities, youth with disabilities, to look into the future and be like, I can be that person regardless of my ability.
Yeah, Christine, how does someone get involved if they're watching us tonight? They want to, be part of this Dear Everybody campaign. They want to donate to Holland Bloorview Foundation. How do they do it?
So going to deareverybody.ca, folks will see a world of resources. So there's tip sheets there on how to be an ally, how to work on making spaces more accessible, workplaces, schools. There's also stories there from our kids talking about the effects of ableism on them, and lots of information there to make you think. Going to hollandbloorview.ca, there's opportunities there to make a donation to support the work of our hospital. We've existed in Toronto for 120 years, and we mean it. Most hopeful futures for all of our kids, youth, and families.
Well, I'm glad we were able to have this conversation. Ahsan, you said it off the top. Happy International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Thank you both for taking the time to have this conversation with us tonight. Christine and Ahsan, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.